Now, there are a couple of topics that I want to get into. Really, hopefully, I have time for both of them. Maybe I'll just have time for one. But I was doing some research about Johnny Nansen. And Johnny Nansen coming over from Arizona, he was the defensive coordinator there. Now he is the co-defensive coordinator and linebackers coach, already paying huge dividends because of Johnny Nansen. They bring in the defensive tackle Tia Savea, Bill Norton also had a connection to him. I talked to Javion Cole, the transfer portal addition at cornerback, courtesy of our friends at Owen Texas Football. So shout out to Owen Texas Football and the crew. And I talked to them, and they told. Actually, I talked to Javion Cole there, and then Javion Cole told me that Johnny Nansen was the first coach that reached out to him to recruit him. So essentially, four of the guys you brought in via the transfer portal have connections to Johnny Nansen, which says a lot about Johnny Nansen and his ability to recruit. So he's already paying dividends, but I think scheme wise, he's going to pay huge dividends too. I brought this up earlier. Now I'm a huge fan in the what I call the Belichickian theory. I was looking one point. This was probably a decade plus ago. I was looking for what set Bill Belichick apart, like what made him such a great coach, and what unique qualities in his skill set as a coach may have made him the GOAT. Now, it turns out it may just be having Tom Brady helps you in your case to be the GOAT, but him as a coach, one thing I found that was unique was the fact that Bill Belichick had coached all three phases of the game: coached offense, coached defense, and coached special teams at the NFL level. That was very rare for a head coach, for any coach, to have expertise in more than one phase of the game. Most coaches spend their entire careers in just one phase of the game. Yeah, that's probably 70%. 70% of 60 to 70% of all coaches at the college and the pro level are all just in one phase of the game. And that's fine. That's just the way of kind of the coaching profession. But I always said if I got into coaching, if I got into it, and if I had to hire a coach, having a coach that's coached in more than one phase of the game, in multiple phases, it would make them a higher priority on my list in terms of hiring them. And the reason why I think it just gives you a more overall well-rounded knowledge of the game and helps you understand the whys of the scheme and the concepts, why an offense is trying to exploit a certain advantage, what they're trying to achieve on that side of the ball. You learn those, and then you go on, the defense side of the ball, you can reverse engineer those concepts and then and build your defensive game plan or structure your defense based on those principles. And that's why like I said, I love coaches that have that kind of experience, and I do think it gives you an advantage. The coaches in the NFL that are Belichickian in their background include John Harbaugh. He's in that category. Of course, it was Bill Belichick. Pete Carroll used to be in there too. Those guys are gone, of course. But Mike Tomlin is in there. Nick Sirianni is in that category. Shane Steichen's in that category. Robert Saleh, Brian Dable. So not as many as there used to be. It used to be a lot more coaches. But of course, some of the old guard are, and I got to go look and research the recent coaches and find how many of them. But usually it's between a 25% to 33%, anywhere from a quarter to a third of college coaches or NFL coaches are Belichickian in their on their resume. And when I was doing research on Johnny Nansen, and by the way, when they hired him, I was really high and complimentary of Johnny Nansen because of his Belichickian background. At the time I said, man, I love the fact that he's coached at the college level at running back, at cornerback. He's coached safeties. He's coached linebackers. He's coached D-line. He's coached inside linebackers, interior D-line. He's been a DC. He's been a special teams coach. So he's coached all three phases of the game. And I said, man, his Belichickian background really impresses me. And I wonder if sometimes coaches is out of necessity, and sometimes they are moved to a certain coaching position. So it wasn't their intention and it wasn't their choice to be Belichick in. They just got through. They were like, "Oh man, we need you to coach running back." So sorry, we either going to fire you, hire some other new DB coach, or you can go coach on the other side of the ball, and the coach will say, "Oh, I'll just go coach it." So they don't really have a passion for it. It was more just a predicament they were in. That wasn't the case for Johnny Nansen. He chose to go coach offense because he wanted to know why the offense was trying to exploit certain advantages and certain loopholes, why they were using certain cheat codes, what they were trying to achieve on offense. Here's the quote from Johnny Nansen at his initial press conference with Arizona. He said, "I understand how offenses are thinking. I understand how they prepare. That to me was something I really wanted to study, and it made me a better coach once I moved back over to defense." Now, former Arizona coach, now at Washington, Jed Fish, once coached on Bill Belichick's staff. He asked Bill Belichick before he took the Arizona job about hiring coaches, like what was his advice on hiring coaches. In the article I read, it says that Bill Belichick advised Coach Jed Fish. He advised him to hire someone who had worked on both sides of the ball. I hire somebody that's got that Belichickian resume, as I call it. And the guy that he hired was Johnny Nansen. Isn't that crazy? So he's not directly tied to Bill Belichick, but the Belichickian theory still applies. And the reason Jed Fish, it's a couple of degrees of separation, decided to hire Johnny Nansen is because he was looking for a guy that had that kind of skill set. Now, that actually does, I think it actually affects or influences Johnny Nansen's defense, because Johnny Nansen's defense at Arizona was among the most multiple, malleable defenses in college football. Week to week, it was an offensive coordinator and a quarterback's nightmare. And much like a Belichick defense, it was matchup based week to week, and it was opponent specific and matchup based week to week. So what you saw on film for one opponent was not necessarily going to be what you saw and what they game planned for you specifically. So he would tweak it every week. And you look at what Johnny Nansen did at Arizona, he did the very same thing. I mean, there were games where, I mean, they played the base 4-3, they played a 4-2-5, they played a tight 3-4 tight front, they played a flex with three safeties. They played the Joker defense, which was a 5-1 front. They played a dollar package with 8 DBs. They played a 7 DB package that was a dime with 6 DBs. You're talking about a flex 3-3-5 we saw out there. I mean, you name it, they pretty much threw it out there at one point and utilized it in a game plan specific for some opponent. And they were different every week. Like against USC and against Washington, they broke out a 7 DB package, and Michael Penix failed to throw a touchdown against Arizona. Caleb Williams had his worst passing yardage game up until that point in the season when he played Arizona. They broke out the old double eagle flex defense when they played Washington State. When they played Oregon State, they played a 3-4, they played a 4-3, they used 3 high safeties, a 4-2-5. It was easily, in my opinion, from what I've watched it, I don't know if I've seen a defense in college football with more variety in their personnel packages and with the types of defenses they played. And I think that's going to have a heavy influence on PK. Just like when Gary Patterson came as a special assistant to the head coach, and he had a heavy influence, excuse me, on PK. And then Texas started playing a lot of match quarters defense, and now they play match quarters at a top 5 rate in the Power 5. Arizona played cover 3 more than any team in the Power 5 with 3 deep. They were in single high safeties probably 75% of the time between playing cover three, and they love to play cover one. We know Sark wants to play more man coverage. That's going to put you with a single high safety unless you don't play zero, which is no high safety, or you want to play two man, which makes you light in the box. They won't do that a lot this year. They want to put that extra defender in the box because they don't have Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy anymore who can win with light boxes. So with that being said, you're going to be playing cover one or you're going to be playing cover three. So I think this year they anticipate playing less cover four match quarters, even though that's what they major in. It's still going to be their bread and butter coverage, but you're going to be throwing in more cover three, more cover one, because you're going to be playing with a single high safety so you can devote that extra defender in the box so you can win the numbers battle. Last year, they didn't have to win the numbers fast. They won with light box. They were the best rush defense in the country, at least among the Power Five, with a light box. Light box is when you have fewer defenders than they have blockers. So they were able to. Why? Because you had the best D tackle combo in college football. You had Devondre Sweat, who was the best run defender in the interior D line in college football. You had Byron Murphy, who was the best pass rushing interior D lineman in college football, and they both demanded double teams. So you had to devote at least three of your offensive linemen to block Texas two. Sometimes devoting four to block their two. You're always going to win the numbers disadvantage. You can win with the light box that way. They won't win with the light box this year that way because they don't have Sweat, they don't have Murphy. So I think the anticipation is we're going to play more single high safeties to put an extra defender in the box. That means you're playing cover one, you're playing cover three. Cover three, Johnny Nansen majors in. So he can all these exotic looks that they played at Arizona. Most of them came out of a cover three look, which means most of them will translate if you're going to be playing more single high this year as well. So what you're going to get from Johnny Nansen, I think the influence will be more exotic looks. Like I said, I'm not going to say PK's defenses are static personnel wise, but what you see is what you get, right? You don't get a lot of personnel variety. They play nickel. Right, and it's a variety in the front of 3 down or 4 down. That's pretty much it. PK does not get exotic in a lot of his looks. I think that'll change. You don't see a lot of dime. You don't see a lot of quarter. You don't see a lot of penny. You don't see them with using 3 high safeties. You don't see a lot of that. I think you'll see more of it this year. And this may be why Sark was not concerned about the pass defense, even though it was bad last year and it was bad versus Washington. They have lost you that game. It was bad in the spring game. And Longhorn fans are freaking out about the pass defense, but not Sark. Sark's not freaking out. I think the reason that he may be more optimistic because he knows opposing coordinators and opposing quarterbacks' life is going to be hell when they start throwing in these Johnny Nansen exotics, which nobody has seen Texas run. But when Arizona was running them last year, they were among the most effective and the most mind-boggling in the country. And I think all of that ties back to his Belichickian background, knowing how offenses work, knowing how multiple offenses are, and then making sure that he's able to construct his defense with those principles in mind. Now, you can't protect yourself against everything, but I think you can really confuse and discombobulate offenses, or at least quarterbacks and coordinators, which is where it starts, by throwing out some exotic looks, things they have not seen or expect to see. And that's what Johnny Nansen did as well, if not better than any other defensive coordinator in the country last year with Arizona.